34-year-old army captain just kicked out hundreds of French troops from his country and told Western mining companies to pack their bags. His name is Ibrahim Traoré, and whether you've heard of him or not, what he's doing in Burkina Faso is about to change how Africa deals with the rest of the world. And honestly, it's been a long time coming. Look, I've been following African politics for years, and I've seen plenty of leaders promise change. But Traoré is actually doing something different. He's not just talking about independence, he's making moves that have European governments genuinely worried. Let me show you what's really happening here, because the mainstream media is either ignoring this story or completely missing the point. First, let's talk about what Burkina Faso was dealing with before Traoré showed up. This is a country that produces gold, lots of it. But somehow, most of the profits were leaving the country through foreign mining companies. Sound familiar? It's the same story across Africa. Rich resources, poor people. France had military bases there, supposedly for security, but attacks were actually increasing. The previous government was seen as corrupt and too friendly with foreign interests. People were frustrated, especially young people who couldn't find jobs despite living on top of valuable minerals. So when Traoré took power in 2022, a lot of people weren't exactly crying about it. Now here's where it gets interesting. Instead of just making speeches about sovereignty like most politicians do, Traoré started taking concrete action. February 2023. He told French forces to leave, not reduce their presence or renegotiate terms, just leave. Then he started reviewing mining contracts with foreign companies. Some got their licenses revoked. Others had to renegotiate under much tougher terms. He made education free from primary school through university. Imagine that, using your country's wealth to actually benefit your own people. And perhaps most importantly, he's been building support with ordinary citizens who feel like someone finally has their back. But Traoré isn't operating in isolation. Mali expelled French troops too. Niger shut down Western military bases and kicked out international forces. Chad canceled several mining deals. What we're seeing is a coordinated shift across the Sahel region. These countries are talking to each other, learning from each other's experiences. And it's not just governments. There's genuine popular support for these moves. Social media across Africa is full of people saying, finally, someone with backbone. The hashtag #AfricaSaysNo is trending in multiple countries. Young Africans are sharing videos supporting these leaders. This isn't just politics. It's become a cultural movement. Now, how is the West responding to all this? Well, if you read European newspapers, you'd think democracy itself is under threat. Headlines about military coups and instability and threats to regional security. But here's what they're not talking about: the economic implications. French companies are losing access to uranium that powers their nuclear plants. British mining corporations are seeing their profit margins shrink. American military contractors are losing bases they've used for regional operations. When European officials talk about concern for democracy, ask yourself, where was this concern when these same companies were paying rock-bottom prices for African resources? What's smart about Traoré's approach is that he's not isolating his country. While distancing himself from traditional Western partners, he's building relationships with other global powers. China is offering infrastructure deals. Russia is providing military cooperation. Turkey, the UAE, and other Middle Eastern countries are investing in energy projects. He's essentially saying, we don't need to be dependent on one set of partners. We have options. And that's exactly what's making former colonial powers nervous. The realization that they're no longer the only game in town. Look, there are legitimate questions about Traoré's methods. Military coups aren't ideal ways to change governments, and there are concerns about democratic processes. But here's the thing. For decades, democratic governments in Africa have been making deals that primarily benefited foreign companies while their own people remained poor. So when someone comes along who actually uses the country's resources for the country's benefit, people are willing to overlook the process questions. It's results that matter to ordinary citizens. Free education, better infrastructure, more government revenue staying in the country. These are things people can see and feel in their daily lives. So where does this all lead? I think we're looking at a fundamental shift in Africa's relationship with the rest of the world. For too long, the dynamic has been Africa needs help from developed countries. But what if it's actually the other way around? What if developed countries need Africa's resources more than Africa needs their partnership? Leaders like Traoré are testing that theory, and so far, it seems to be working. Other African countries are watching closely. If Burkina Faso can successfully renegotiate its place in the global economy, expect more countries to follow suit. What strikes me about this whole situation is how it challenges assumptions we've taken for granted. The idea that small African countries have to accept whatever terms powerful Western nations offer them. That's being questioned. The assumption that military bases and mining concessions are permanent fixtures. That's being challenged. And honestly, regardless of what you think about Traoré personally, it's refreshing to see leaders who are willing to prioritize their own citizens' interests over maintaining comfortable relationships with foreign powers. I'm curious what you think about all this. Do you see Traoré as someone fighting for his people's interests, or do you think his methods are too risky? And more broadly, do you think other countries should take a harder line in international negotiations, even if it means ruffling some feathers? Let me know in the comments. I actually read them and respond. And if you found this perspective helpful, consider subscribing because I try to cover stories like this that don't get enough attention in mainstream media. There's a lot more happening in global politics than what makes the evening news.